138 MMA here for another Dana White's Contender Series Week 9 breakdown. In this one, we have Nurullo Aliev taking on Josh Wick. And Josh Wick is taking this on short notice, I do believe. But when I first saw this matchup, I thought for sure this was going to be a pretty cut and dry pick. Eliav was the obvious go-to. The guy's like minus 500. I thought it was going to be pretty easy. But I broke this down, and if you can't tell, I've got a lot more information on this fight than I typically put on the board. And the reason why is because this fight has a lot of question marks around it, and there was a lot to go over. So I'm going to get into that. We're going to make an official pick, and I'm going to kind of tell you how I got there. So what we've got here, we got 6-0 versus 12-5, and that 12-5 is interesting because he started as a pro at, I believe, age 19, might have been 18, but like pretty young. So some of that 12-5 is, it's over the course of a pretty lengthy career so far. So you got to take that into account. With these two, I'm going to go ahead and start with Eliav here. I do think his is the easiest to break down because it's very, very much that typical heavy Sambo style. So that combat Sambo, aggressive takedowns, aggressive top control, traps an arm, ground and pounds your face to the mat. Super good at those things. That's how he wins most of his fights. Actually, all of his fights. So he is currently 6-0, but 5 of those have gone to decision. The one that did not, I believe the corner threw in the towel. So for Eliav here, that wrestling, that pressure, that Sambo style, that's his best path to victory in every fight, not just this fight. In pretty much every fight, that's what he wants to do. Something I did notice, though, is he also has good cardio because he can go that whole, obviously he's gone the distance 5 times in his 6 pro fights. And he's never looked super gassed. He was able to continue to keep the pace, keep the pressure on his opponents, and it's usually the opponent that looks more tired than him. So for me, Eliav obviously has the cardio to go the distance, has the Sambo style to get the win here if he wants it. If he uses that style, he should be fine as far as getting those takedowns. Something else, so he's not looking to strike whatsoever on the feet. Every fight I saw, his amount of, which was all of his pro fights, his amount of time he spent on the feet was very, very, very minimal. When he did have to throw, it was clear that he was just looking for a way to get the fight to the ground. So he does not want to stay on the feet at all, especially not against a guy like Josh Wick, and I'll get into him in just a moment. But something else. So I already mentioned he tends to go to decision, but the last 3 fights he's had are at welterweight. Now this is a lightweight fight. Now, when you look at that, so he's had 3 at welterweight. Wick, on the other hand, started his career at featherweight, but he was still a teenager, so, bear that in mind. He's also taken fights at welterweight, so I do think that Eliav's going to end up looking much bigger in this fight, but I don't think it's going to be as big of a discrepancy as you would assume by a guy coming off of 3 welterweight fights and a guy who started his career at featherweight. So anyway, I think they're going to be closer than that suggests. But I do think that Eliav is going to be the bigger fighter. Now, like I said, I thought this was going to be super clear-cut, Eliav by landslide, or however he wants to win this fight. When I first started breaking this down, I was not familiar with Josh Wick. Now I'm familiar with Josh Wick, and I've got to say, at the odds, the dude's got a shot. And the reason I say that, so there's like the standard combos that you get with fighting styles. So For Josh Wick, it's that Muay Thai BJJ style. You get another one that's really common is like the wrestle boxer. I think that's the most common that you hear about is the wrestle boxer style. Well, the contrast to the wrestle boxer style is the Muay Thai BJJ combo, and that's what he has. The reason why Muay Thai typically, obviously, you're a little bit more upright, a little lighter on that front leg. So for Wick, obviously, it's harder to stand from a traditional Muay Thai stance and then get the takedown defense as much as. It's harder to have good takedown defense from a Muay Thai stance than it is from certain other stances. So with that said, it's good to have a good BJJ in your back pocket so your jiu-jitsu can carry you once the fight does get to the ground, because you're probably going to be able to get taken down a little easier from the Muay Thai stance than you are from, say, obviously a wrestling stance or even a boxing stance where you're a little heavier on the front leg and you're able to shuck those takedowns with the sprawl. So for me, this is a good combo for him, especially in this fight. He does need that. When I wanted to point out, and I believe he was like 19 or 20 years old at the time, so it's a long time ago, but he has an armbar victory over Vince Morales in what was a pretty darn good fight. And if you don't know, Vince Morales is already in the UFC, so that's a good win. That's a pretty good win, and he did that as a young guy. Obviously, Morales was also young, so I mean, there's that, but it was I mean, that's a solid victory. So to have that on the resume, it's a bigger name than anything that was on Eliav's resume, obviously. I mean, neither of them have had other wins over UFC fighters. So with that said, the Vince Morales win is a good win. I do like that. His ability to stick to a game plan showed really well in some of his more recent fights, but throughout his career as well. He can pick a game plan and stick to it based on his opponent. And that's something I noticed because I watched just about every single one of these. There might have been one or two I couldn't find, but that's a lot of fights. So I watched pretty much every fight he had, and I noticed that he's able to take a game plan and start to finish, he's using that same game plan. A lot of time it's the leg kicks, or maybe it's the knees from the clinch, or whatever it is. He's been able to pick it and stick with it based on his opponent, and that's something that's going to come into play really well here against Aliev. I do like that. Solid chin, solid cardio. This dude can eat a shot, and I've seen him eat some crazy shots. And I think the reason why is he's able to roll with the shots a little bit. So when he gets hit, he's not getting hit in the way, he's not getting hit with the full impact of the punch a lot of the time. Sometimes he is, obviously. That's how a fight works. But he can take the punch as he's going with the momentum of that punch. So when he does that, it takes some of the sting off it, and I think that's what helps with that good chin that he has, because he's able to weather these shots a little bit better. And he can obviously go the distance. He's gone 5 rounds before in a title fight on the regional scene, so that's a good sign to see a guy be able to go 5 rounds. And he didn't look he didn't look just done. He still had a little gas in the tank. So obviously he was tired, just a 5-round fight, but that cardio was there. He still could push the pace when needed. He does have decent takedown defense and the ability to get up. He's shown that on the regional scene. The problem is he's never fought anybody who has the sambo or wrestling credentials of Aliev. I don't know that takedown defense is going to do much here. He may be able to get back up, but I feel like it's going to be rinse and repeat. He's going to get taken down again. So that takedown defense isn't going to be... I don't think it's going to help him a ton. It's not expert level takedown defense. It's not top tier, but it's decent. So he's going to make Aliev work for the takedowns at times, I do believe, especially as the fight goes on. But I don't know that that's going to be good enough to stop the takedown. His ability to get back up, that's a maybe. As you see, I have dog in all caps. This dude's a dog. I saw some of these fights, and I'm just thinking, man, that guy's just weathering these punches and coming forward with his own. I was really impressed with Josh Wick. If you can't tell, I was really impressed with his fights. He does lack power. Not a ton of pop in his shots. He does have a head kick knockout, I do believe, but I mean, it's a head kick. What do you expect? If you kick somebody in the head, they probably should go down. He doesn't have a ton of power. So I don't know that the single shot knockout's his best path to victory here. His best path to victory is using that Muay Thai, being able to land the shots at range. Does have solid shots up the middle, good kicks up the middle with the front kick. He can throw the roundhouse kicks to the leg really well, chop at that front leg, make it so you don't have as much power to get the takedown. So he does have paths to victory. The power is not that one. So you don't have to worry if you're on the Aliev side. You don't have to worry about the one-shot KO most likely. I mean, unless he shoots a takedown, runs into a knee. I mean, doesn't matter how much power you got, running into a knee on the takedown is not a good move. And also, he can be held up against the cage, and he'll do that for minutes at a time. He does have the ability to get off, but sometimes he is content to stay there and try to use his own knees, elbows, things like that. So for me, this fight is a tougher one to pick than I originally thought. And I think the best way to play it is to play Aliev in your full card parlay, because we all do that on the Contender series. Who doesn't? You got your 5-fight parlay. Aliev's the more likely to win. I think if they fight 10 times, I think Aliev wins 6 or 7 of those. So probably more likely to win. And the reason why is because that sambo style is just so hard to beat. As you see, some of the best fighters in the UFC, in all of the UFC history, have that background. It's just so hard to beat. There's a reason that over 40% of UFC champions have a wrestling background. Sambo and wrestling are very similar. So there's a reason for that. So with Aliev here, I do think he's the more likely to get the win. But I don't think you can count out Wick as much as the odds suggest. I think he's, 350 or 375 plus? That's crazy because this dude's been through some battles. Aliev's never really had to be tested. he's been able to beat everybody with that sambo style that he uses, and impressively. So that's a good sign. But Wick might be the guy to test him. And the way I think the best way to play this would be, and if you're interested in getting all of my picks and my suggested bets, let me know in the comments, because pretty soon we're gonna be coming out with something like that. And I just like to know who's interested. We can kind of figure out how that's gonna play out pretty soon. But I think the way to play it is you got Eliav in your parlay because he's the more likely to win. But you hedge it off a little bit here with Wick, because Wick at that price isn't a bad pick. He has the tools. His jiu-jitsu off his back is really good. It's better than you would assume from a guy that's typically a Muay Thai style fighter. But his ability to hit you at range and also make the fight kind of ugly, that's there. The dude can take a punch. The dude's got cardio for days. Like I said, this dude's got dog in him. He doesn't ever give up. Like, he'll get taken down, whatever. And a lot of guys, you see it. Even at the UFC level, you'll see a guy get taken down, and then it's late in the fight. They just lay there because I'm already down so far. I can't, and you can just see the life suck out of them. And we've all seen it in the UFC. You know what I'm talking about here. Wick doesn't have that. I've watched every single one of his fights. When that happens, he does not have that. He still fights to get back up. He still fights for arm bars, hits you with elbows from the bottom, looks for a triangle, something. He's still fighting for something, whether he can get back up or lock up a submission. I mean, it paid off in the Morales fight. That was a back-and-forth fight. Like I said, this fight is not as far as the odds suggest. So, for me, the official pick will be Aliev. And the fan in me says Wick should get this. I'm going to be rooting hard for Wick. And the fan in me says, don't count out Wick. And it's worth a shot on the dog here if you're going to hedge off on that parlay. Because I think this fight is way closer than the odds suggest. I do like Eliav here, though. That sambo style is just so hard to beat. It's the same reason that guys like Khabib Nurmagomedov, Islam Makhachev just rise through the top of the divisions just so easily, because it is at this current time the best style for MMA. That hasn't always been the case. At one point, it was Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. For a little while there, for a very short while, it was the Muay Thai kickboxing style. Then wrestling kind of took over. And then you'd see a little something or another here and there. And then now it's pretty much just sambo/wrestling are like your tops. Most champions have that as a background. We are starting to see more strikers get to the top. But still, typically when they face a high-level grappler, the high-level grappler is able to get the fight to the ground. And when it gets to the ground, the discrepancy in skills is just so vast on the ground when you have someone that comes in with a sambo style like this that is so refined, trapping up arms, not allowing you to defend yourself while you're getting punched in the face. It sucks. It's not a place to be. So for me, the style that he has is probably the best style for MMA. So I will pick Eliav. I'm rooting for Wick in this just because, man, that guy's excited. I'm a big fan of his after watching these fights. So, like I said, maybe hedge it off. If you're super confident in Eliav and you think I'm overlooking something, please let me know. If you think his striking's better than I think it is, please let me know. And if you know Wick personally and you think, like, man, you don't understand, this guy's been working nothing but takedown defense for the last year and a half, he's going to be able to stuff every takedown, let me know what you think there. Because maybe I don't know that. I've only saw what was available in these fights here, all 17 of them. But yeah, let me know. This is my favorite fight of the night. So if you can't tell, I'm super excited about it. It's going to be the longest breakdown of the Dana White's Contender Series Week 9 card. So I will see you in the next one, but this one is going to be fun.